Okay, episode 26, traitor. I didn't see it going that way. Like when I when I saw that the title of the episode was traitor, I just assumed that it would have been something along the lines of, like, you know, Flock would just refer to them as traitors because they're going against Eren and everything, and, you know, the Jaegerists and their own people kind of thing. But I didn't think that it would actually go the way where Armin would go in with a plan of trying to do things peacefully by basically putting on an act that the Armor and Cart Titan actually got away and they're actually swimming after Eren, and therefore kind of put on this ruse and kind of force Flock into keeping the Azumabito people alive and the engineers and everything like that so they can service up the flying airship and then get away without any bloodshed. But by that plan, it's like essentially going ahead, it put them in a, like, Connie and Armin specifically, in a really awful predicament, and one that I really appreciate come back to Bertold. And obviously it was like done on purpose. I mean, you know, if it wasn't as obvious as the idea of actually flashbacking to a, you know, to seeing Bertold, I just, like, distinctly remember that that by Bertold truly saying that you are our friends, but like the situation that they're in, like, calls for it to, that they have to do it. And I remember specifically, like, that when that happened, like, I think it was, what was it? Was it season 3? I think it was season 2 originally. I think where the first one, like, I think it was when Reiner was running away with, like, you know, with obviously, like, Bertold, who wasn't obviously in his Titan form, and Mia and Krista were there, and she was known as Krista at the time, and I think that was the first time he actually said it, because, like, you had all of the, like, the squad, like, basically all attached themselves to Reiner when he was running, and obviously Bertold was obviously, you know, like, you know, enclosed within Reiner's hands or something, and he basically said, like, that was never a lie, you are a friend. But then I remember specifically in season 3 when we had that episode that, like, Bertold was like, you know, I think it was, wasn't it? I don't know, I can't remember. But I remember just being specifically like, what do you mean? Like, how can that make any sense whatsoever? You are our friends, but we're willing to kill you, you know? And I remember being like, what could possibly be the like, such a big deal where you had to kill these people? And I just couldn't grasp the idea of it. I couldn't get my head around it. And I think that's what's so great about, you know, the show, about setting it up in a way where it originally started out as the people on Paradis were the victims, right? And it's still a heavy theme, but it's obviously things that have happened in the past where the previous victims, everyone from their side sees themselves as a victim, right? But looking in, obviously, on the show from your point of view, it's the people who are, you know, within the walls that are being attacked for seemingly, like, no reason. And I love the fact that it's transitioned and actually flipped on its head, that now that you've got the likes of Eren, who refuses for this to be the case anymore, and he's going out to destroy the rest of them, like, that it's flipped on its head, and now you see, like, it from the sort of the other side, and seeing our own, you know, own characters in a way that we've grew up with have to basically go through the exact same thing. And having Connie be the one to, you know, to go through with that is tough, because he got over this whole, you know, I mean, it was only a couple episodes ago when he was about to feed Falco to his mother, and I mean, something that had been, like, so traumatizing for him, his own mother, and what he had in his hands was able to bring her back, and he had to have the sort of the, you know, I mean, Armin played obviously a massive part where obviously Connie was never going to allow Armin to kill himself on his behalf, but it took that, and then the strength to come out on the other side of it and basically say to himself like, no, this is it. This is where I promised that I wanted to become like a sort of like a model soldier, and that's what I'll become. Let's go save the world. And then all of a sudden he's having to do things that are unbecoming of a model soldier. Like they're not what a model soldier does. So again, he's so quickly after that whole sort of development of his character, he's had to do something that he never would ever want to do. But it just shows you the like how bad it can be, you know, and how bad it's been throughout the entire show. People always having to do things that they don't really want to do. So yeah, mad. At the I thought the way that the episode ended was like really poignant. And I mean, even like from the start of the episode where they're like, you know, they're scouting out essentially like what's going on around the port and whatever, and they're basically saying, well, you know, like, well, what's the plan? Oh, well, we can kind of like keep them at bay while the Azumabitos kind of like work on it and stuff. And it's like, well, I said that's never going to happen. While Flock is there, it's not like I had no doubt in my mind that it would turn sour, because he has no sort of regard. I think, like I've said before, I think he's developed this sort of just power hungry nature kind of thing where he's in charge, what he says goes, and it's almost like even if there was any inkling at all, which, you know, to some degree there like kind of like was, where he was like, huh, but then obviously he starts to suspect and he thinks about like, why you're taking the horse instead of the train, why you're sneaking around. But like I feel like even if that thought wasn't in his head, like if Armin and whatnot did come by train or whatever, they weren't sneaking around. Like I would just feel like even then I would just feel like Flock would find some reason to not let it happen. So, you know, I just feel like he wants that control. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't know. I don't know if he's long for this world. I don't know if they'll keep him alive, because they're kind of a group now, like, you know, the group that's going after Eren. They're kind of a group that's more like kind of a squad, sort of like heading out. They're not staying in one spot. Like they don't have their own people on, like, staying on Paradis where they can like lock up Flock and keep an eye on him. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that entire group's just going off to, like, you know, against Eren. So it's not like they can kind of keep a hold of him. So I'm wondering if he's about to die. But I mean, the female Titan and the armored Titan, so like Reiner and Annie, both transformed directly behind him. You know, so I was thinking this is it. This is where he's going to die. That didn't happen, but you know, we'll see what happens coming up. You know, I don't know if he's going to make it, but we'll see. I kind of hope that he doesn't, because he just comes across as a dick. You know, so yeah. The very start of the episode, like when the clouds were coming in, I was like, what, that's a storm rolling in? My immediate thought was like a storm, because I was thinking, right, so they're talking about a plan where like they need to get in without them destroying the ship. So my first thought was, well, what do? Do you do it stealthily under cover of darkness, wait for nighttime? And then the clouds start rolling in. I'm like, oh, it's a storm. Well, maybe that might be dark enough for them to actually move around. No, it turns out that was basically just the steam that's coming off from the massive fucking, you know, the amount of Titans. It's all just accumulating and coming back. And, you know, it's almost going to shroud the world in sort of permanent darkness, kind of, in a way. So yeah. I did like as well, like, that Connie was, and the, you know, the group, they were kind of trying to come up with an excuse to not be able to, like, you know, to not have to go through with killing them. I mean, you saw it immediately, like, kind of like on Connie's face when Mikasa was like, he says, well, if we start fighting, the Amazabitos are going to be in the way and they're going to get caught up in it. And, you know, immediately Connie was like, yeah, exactly. Almost like, you know, like it's like they were looking for any excuse not to turn it into a fight. Unfortunately, that's the way that it ended up going, but, you know, the Azumabitos are still alive at this point. And I feel like they are going to have to just stay alive, because I don't feel like that boat is going anywhere without them. So, yeah. Magath breaking Yelena's arm. I mean, he must have... The only excuse I can give for him there is that he must have just lost it, you know? Because I was kind of like... what are you doing? Like, what is this? Because he's essentially holding her mouth shut whilst breaking her arm, and basically saying, like, you know, tell us where he's going. So basically, he was going to break her arm regardless, because he didn't let her speak. So he must have just lost it. You know, clearly it was getting to him. But I do, you know, like the fact that he did actually just like own up and just admit that, like, you know, you should have never been involved with this. And he apologizes for the whole thing. And then I like, in sort of like return, that Armin was like, you know, basically McGaff give them the option to just not be involved in what they're about to do. And Armin was like, nah, that's just not the way. To sort of like force that sort of, you know, that horrendous sort of burden that, you know, the likes of what Marley did to the Eldian kids, to basically use them as weapons of war, to put the burden on them killing other people rather than doing it themselves, is disgusting. And Armin being like, no, that's not the way that I'm going to do it. Like, you know, if you're doing it, I'm not going to relinquish myself of the burden. Because I think also in Aaron's mind, he's like, he knows that he's just as involved, like, you know, like, well, not just as involved as if he was, like, you know, sitting it out, but it's like that sort of, you know, that sort of like bystander guilt, I suppose. Like, for example, like, and this happens across the world, which is fucking mental. It's just it's the era of social media. It's just absolutely disgusting. But you see people like uploading videos of people like watching people essentially get bullied and beaten up and anything, and you just see people like standing around like recording shit, and it's like they are, you know, just as much to blame, because they're basically just standing there watching shit unfold, and you're not stopping it. You're not doing anything about it. So I think, like, in Armin's mind, he understands that, but like to the next degree of, like, they have to, you know, to shoulder all of that burden of bloodshed and whatnot. That, like, you know, if Armin's going to stand there and accept that his friends are going to die, or like people that he knew and the cadets and everything like that, and just watch it happen, that, you know, it feels wrong to him. So he has to put like that burden as well upon his shoulders. So I did like the fact that, you know, that he was willing to sort of just get his hands dirty for that. I mean, yeah, he did obviously try his hardest to come up with a plan that would avoid that bloodshed, but in the end it was, you know, I mean, Armin still didn't have to get his hands dirty. He got shot. And again, like, another thing is, like, this is the thing with Armin, I just feel like he has so much mental strength that, you know, because I remember, like, back when, this is something that Armin's always had, that he was never a coward, you know what I mean? Like, I remember even back in, like, episode 1, like, you know, them bullies, and he's basically, like, I'm sure he was giving it back to the bullies, like, giving it to them verbally, whatnot. Like, he was fine taking a beating, you know, and he would never give up. And I mean, even like, you know, against Berthold, when he basically was just, like, sacrificing himself, like, he's willing to go through these things where he has major balls, you know. And again here, I was like, yeah, he couldn't have been shot fatally, otherwise he would have had no choice but to turn. And if he did, he would destroy the boat. So I was like, well, he had to have, you know, just been shot in places that, you know, it wasn't a fatal shot. But still, like, you've got to think, like for that, I mean, I know for Armin, he's already sacrificed himself at this point and basically incinerated himself alive. So, like, some, you know, some gunshots in certain places isn't, you know, seems a bit lightweight compared to that, but it's still, like, if you think of it, even just like, just forget it's Armin for a second, like, the idea that, you know, you've been shot, and I don't know, I guess the idea, if you have been shot, the onus to kind of try and stay alive, right, that almost every human being kind of has this, like, you know, just to stay alive no matter what. You've got to imagine that the temptation to just turn so that you don't die has got to be like immeasurable. You know, shit, I've been shot. It's fine. I can transform and I'll be okay. But he knows that he can't do it because he'll just destroy everything. And that, to be fair, that was one of my first questions, actually going back to the start of the episode, where like one of the first things that they say is like, well, you know, we're gonna have to use the Titans. You're gonna have to use all of your Titans in this. And I was thinking, well, how's Armin gonna help here? You know what I mean? He's a nuke. Like, that isn't gonna help in any way. I mean, yeah, you would basically kill off everyone there, but that's not what you wanted. So I did have the question anyway beforehand, but yeah, so Armin with absolutely massive cojones in this episode. So yeah, the female Titan returns. It's great seeing the female Titan again. And it's like, it was only yesterday. I noticed they're using the similar attack patterns that the female Titan does. I said during the reaction, it reminds me of the horrendous fucking episode that essentially killed me off for the day, which was season 1, episode 21, because that was the one that killed me. You know, like, I was like in awe of everything that was happening in season 1 up until episode 21, but like that was the episode where like my heart just dropped, and it killed me for the rest of the day. Because I remember I had to react to episode 20. I think, what was it? Episode 20, 21, and 22. I think I reacted to all 3 on that day, and then I had to go to work. And like at my job, I honestly, it was like my soul had left my body. I was dead that day. You know, so seeing that again brings back horrific memories. But you know, it is what it is. Female Titan's back. So yeah, I mean, Connie killing obviously Samuel and Daz. I remember Daz. I do remember specifically him. He was part of like that cadet team back then. I can't remember if Samuel was. I can't remember if he was there. He probably was, and I think that's probably like the reason why it was like those two paired together, like because you remember them faces. Because that's the thing. If you're looking at the Jaegerists now, the only recognizable character really is Flock. Like the rest of them are just kind of, you know, like everyday people that you just never see. You know what I mean? They're kind of just extras. But like Daz specifically, I remember. So I wouldn't be surprised if Samuel was actually back there. I just can't remember him, you know. I think it's probably because Daz was a bit more of a sort of like an obvious character. Like he stands out more. Because I remember he specifically had like this character trait of being like a coward. So I remember, yeah. So yeah, I mean the end of that was crazy. And it doesn't stop because we go into the next episode, which I'm going to react to now, actually, as well. So, because that's the thing. If you're looking at the Jaegerists now, the only recognizable character really is Flock. Like the rest of them are just kind of, you know, like everyday people that you just never see. Because that's the thing, if you're looking at the Jaegerists now, the only recognizable character really is Flock. Like the rest of them are just kind of, you know, like everyday people that you just never see.